Couple adopts a dog. They discover a strange habit and their hearts break when they find out the reason. It's almost every kid's dream to own a puppy or a cat. They long to have a furry friend that they can grow up with and spend hours playing together. With nearly 70 million stray dogs in the United States alone and only half being abandoned at shelters, it's better to give these homeless animals a second chance at life than to buy them from a breeder. However, while it's encouraged that families adopt dogs from shelters, there are some risks involved. For example, some of these families come with strange and unsettling behaviors that have been passed down through their previous experiences. A couple decided that they wanted to adopt a friendly canine. Rather than going to a breeder, they decided to head on over to their nearest shelter and pick one of the dogs there to take home. They soon discovered that their loving golden retriever had a very weird habit that would leave them feeling very uncomfortable. This behavior carried on for weeks, leaving the couple more and more concerned. When they eventually find out why their dog had behaved that way, their hearts broke and they learned how to love him the way he seemed to be needed to be loved. To understand the gravity of the family's story, we need to go back in time. The couple decided they wanted to adopt an animal and take it home with them for a better life. They visited the nearest shelter with their hearts set on finding a furry companion. The minute that their eyes connected with one particular happy dog, they knew that he was the one. That very day, they signed the papers and adopted the dog, naming him Jack. While the couple know that they love Jack, they had no idea how their story would unfold. At first, the couple had nothing to worry about. Jack fit their family like a glove, and his sweet nature made him easy to love. It didn't take the adopted pup long at all to get comfortable in his new home. Yet, despite his happy and affectionate personality, there was one habit that would come to the surface once the sun went down. Little did his owners know that Jack had a certain custom that would give them cause for concern. Chances are you've probably seen some dogs do some pretty strange things. It's not unusual for dogs to encourage a giggle by chasing their tails or strike a nerve by erratically barking whenever a bicycle goes by. However, Jack's habit was particularly strange. It was something so unusual that his family had never experienced it before. On the first night in his new home, Jack refused to lay in his dog bed in the other room. Instead, he spent the entire night by his owner's bedroom door. The couple was perplexed by Jack's decision to hover around their bedroom door. Why did he not choose to relax in the comfortable bed they'd bought for him? While they couldn't explain his behavior, they decided to set boundaries and installed a child-proof door. But you won't believe Jack's response. The message was clearly not delivered to the adopted pup, and Jack continued to hover at the door, staring at his owners as they slept. He didn't get bored and didn't moan for attention, he just kept on staring. Although the couple was confused by Jack's behavior, they did have a few ideas about what he would want. At first, they thought he wanted to hop into their bed and sleep with them, but they didn't want to encourage this habit. Then they thought perhaps he wanted attention or food, but unlike other dogs who whine or beg, Jack remained completely silent, patiently watching his owners. He would stay awake the entire night and catch up on sleep by taking naps throughout the day. In the morning, the couple woke up to find their newly adopted golden retriever hovering at their door, wide awake. They were incredibly confused by his strange behavior, but decided it wasn't worth too much thought at first. After all, he seemed like a regular dog during the day. Jack's nature continued to be friendly and sweet, and his energy levels were still the same as you'd expect from his breed of dog. But when the second night came around, the couple became even more disturbed. On one hand, having your new dog stare at you while you sleep is a very strange situation to find yourself in. But the couple's concern for their dog extended past their discomfort with the situation. They were also worried Jack would get sick if he didn't get enough sleep. His immune system would weaken and his energy levels would wane. The last thing they wanted was for Jack to fall ill under their care. But they had a plan. A few nights passed with the couple anxiously trying to sleep while their golden canine stared at them from the bedroom door. With their concern increasing at an exponential rate, they decided to buy some hidden cameras and record Jack's behavior. From the bottom of their hearts, the couple was hoping that they would discover that Jack did sleep at night and just happened to wake up at the same time as them. Could the tapes be the answer to the mystery as they gave insight to Jack's midnight behavior? The couple hoped that by installing hidden surveillance cameras, they'd be able to get to the bottom of Jack's strange behavior. but after reviewing the recordings, they were left equally, if not more confused than ever. The videos revealed that Jack spent the majority of the night silently watching his owners from the childproof structure at their door. He would close his eyes and get a few minutes of rest, but then wake up and continue watching his owners. Perplexed by his behavior, the couple decided to take a different approach. The couple had never experienced such strange behavior before in their lives. They knew that adopting a dog would mean that the pup had a history, but they couldn't make sense of Jack's odd antics. They spent countless hours discussing what Jack's intentions could possibly be. Was he carrying some form of emotional baggage from his years as a pup? Or was he previously some form of guard dog? Regardless of the reason, the couple decided to take matters into their own hands. Although the couple wasn't sure why Jack was staring at them, they knew that his behavior had to stop. They pondered the situation and decided on a way that, they hoped, would stop Jack from creeping them out and actually get some rest. That night, they shut their bedroom door. The childproof gate hadn't worked, but perhaps closing Jack off completely might. However, when they woke up in the morning, they discovered that Jack was waiting for them on the other side of their door. It was time to test Plan B. The couple was at a loss and desperate to fix the situation. They considered that perhaps Jack's diet was wrong or he needed to go outside. The couple mixed things up a bit, hoping that by changing his food, he wouldn't hover at the door. Jack's diet, choice of treats, and even his dog bed was changed. The couple went above and beyond to make sure Jack was comfortable and healthy. But still, Jack wouldn't move from their bedroom door at nighttime. When the door, the food, and the dog bed didn't work, the couple had another idea. Perhaps if Jack was exhausted by nighttime, then he'd sleep and not stare at them. So they started to exercise the energetic golden retriever before bed. The family ended up spending hours playing with Jack outside and taking him on long walks around the neighborhood. When they got home, Jack would appear tired out and the couple was hopeful he'd have a good night's sleep. But when the lights went out, Jack kept on staring. After running out of options, it was time to get professional advice. After trying everything they could think of, the couple decided to take Jack to see a professional and headed down to the local vet. They were certain that after chatting with an expert, they'd have an answer for Jack's strange behavior, but they were wrong. The vet didn't have any thoughts to add to Jack's situation. The dog was in perfect health and there was no biological reason the dog should be staying awake all night. The concerned group was left wondering if Jack's strange behavior was what brought him to the shelter in the first place, and that's when they had an idea. After exhausting all of their options, the couple had a light bulb moment. What about the shelter? Surely the shelter would have an idea about where Jack came from and what could have prompted his unsettling habits to form. They decided to visit the pound and ask about Jack's story. They were hoping that the visit would shed some light on the situation, but they couldn't possibly have prepared for the heartbreaking story they were about to learn. After arriving at the shelter, the couple prepared themselves to learn the truth about Jack's past. However, they could never have expected the story they were about to hear. The couple learned that Jack had been abandoned just a few weeks before they'd taken him into their home. Before them, Jack was cared for by another family. The previous family had big plans which involved a baby but not a dog. Rather than making it work, Jack was abandoned and left without any love or care. The family that previously cared for Jack had no idea what their thoughtless and cruel decision would have as an effect on the dog. Rather than taking responsibility for the golden retriever that come to rely on them, they decided to abandon him. The abandonment left Jack frightened and the trauma left him scarred, but the worst part of Jack's story was how his previous family said goodbye. His new owners had come to love him very much, and when they heard his story, they couldn't help themselves from crying. With tears running down their cheeks, the couple came to learn about how Jack was abandoned. His previous owners had waited for the sun to set and slipped Jack a sedative. Once he fell asleep, they heartlessly took him to the pound, without even giving him the chance to say goodbye. When Jack woke up, he was confused and scared. He was in an unfamiliar place and had no idea where his owners were. The intention was to prevent a sad goodbye for both parties, but all that did was traumatize the poor pup. Anyone who's ever owned a pooch will know how deep of an impact a furry family member can have. They're always waiting to lick you at the door after a long day, they lie at your feet with big eyes, and they blindly run after the same stick, no matter how many times you throw it. Knowing how loving and loyal dogs are only makes Jack's story even more heartbreaking and difficult to process. No wonder the dog had such a hard time sleeping at night. When the couple learned the truth about Jack's story, they were heartbroken. In the short time they'd owned Jack, they'd come to love his adorable, friendly nature and energetic demeanor. They were determined to find a solution that would make Jack feel safe and loved in his new home. They put their minds together to come up with a way to help their dog forget about the time he was abandoned. And that's when they had a brilliant idea. The family returned home from the shelter determined to make Jack feel loved and comfortable. They realized that locking him outside of their room had only added to his trauma, and they were willing to do whatever it took to make him realize they loved him. The first thing the couple did was to move Jack's bed from the other room into their bedroom. By speaking gently, they coaxed him into sleeping in their room with them. But you won't believe what Jack did. At first, Jack was confused by the change of tone. Up until this point, he had been barricaded outside of the bedroom and was uncertain how to read their new situation. Instead of making him feel at ease, the new sleeping routine made Jack anxious. During the first night that Jack spent in his owner's room, he was nervous and clearly reluctant to fall asleep. He stuck to his old habits and sat in his bed, staring at his owners the whole night. He was petrified of being abandoned again. Eventually, after a few nights, Jack realized that his new owners had no intention of abandoning him. Slowly, he began to relax in their presence and became more comfortable with falling asleep. With his dog bed close to the couple's bed, he learned to trust his new owners and identified the genuine love and concern that they had for him. As the nights passed, he eventually became comfortable enough to sleep all the way through until the morning. The family had solved the mystery of Jack's strange habits and helped him overcome his trauma. After the breakthrough with their adopted pup, the couple decided to share Jack's story with the rest of the world. They wanted everyone to know that every action has a reaction and every decision carries consequences. The consequences of abandoning a pet can be very traumatic for the furry animal. They also encouraged people who might be in the same situation as they were by providing ways to calm an anxious dog and love their pooch unconditionally. It should come as no surprise that their story went viral and touched people's hearts across the globe. As the couple's story was shared, more and more people identified with their struggle. Social media became a powerful tool in educating people about the reality of adopting dogs and the emotional baggage their pup may carry. People began to share similar stories in response, further highlighting how complex canine emotions can be. Would Jack's previous owners have abandoned him if they had known the distressing effect it would have had on him? Luckily, Jack was adopted by a couple who was willing to put in the effort to understand him, but it wasn't easy. Even if Jack's previous family had loved him, their careless decision to abandon him without saying goodbye left him traumatized and hurt. When he was adopted by a new family, these traumas continued to haunt him, making him fearful of falling asleep in case his nightmare was replayed. It wasn't an easy road, and it took Jack a few weeks to get accustomed to the idea that his new family had no plans of abandoning him. But eventually, he realized that they were dedicated to loving him forever. There's nothing that the couple can do to take away Jack's past, but they can make sure that he feels loved in his present and future. Choosing to move Jack's bed into their bedroom was the best decision that they could have ever made. It was this decision to bring Jack close to them during his darkest hours that made the pup realize his owners loved him. Eventually, both the humans and the dog could sleep all the way until morning without concern. Sadly, Jack's story is not the only one of its kind. There are countless abandoned dogs around the world, desperate for a home but haunted by their trauma. Jack's story offers a valuable lesson to those who choose to adopt dogs. It's important to understand that each dog has a past, and their future will largely be influenced by how you respect this past. Dogs are loyal to a fault, and they deserve to be loved with the same loyalty in return.